Awesome. Okay, well, this is like a version of a live show. It's a tape delay to put up on Sunday night. Hey, everybody that's watching. Hey, Sam. This is Week Didn't Start. Hello. So this is our first attempt at releasing this in some kind of video format because we recorded this show last week via this format and realized, oh, this might be just a nice way to capture it and post it in another form. Before we get in, if we have new viewers or new listeners, what we do in this show is we take the format of a very well-known 1989 pop song by an unnamed piano man that covers a lot of news. And every week in 2020, we started this, we've been doing a weekly version of the song using the format of the song. It is my personal opinion that this is the greatest. I don't know about greatest. It includes a lot of information. It's a little bit dumb and it sort of drives you crazy. And that feels like the perfect literary poetic format for us to dive into the news. That's where we started the year. And now we're in an even more challenging, even more news barraged time. So it feels to me that there's a lot of energy around this song kind of out there, you know? Like there are a lot of folks who've been, have you noticed this, Sam?
That there's I'm just going to say the We Didn't Start Energy.
Okay. Yeah. There's We Didn't Start Energy.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Actually, when I was trying to find this live stream on YouTube, I found a YouTube video with a couple thousand views titled "We Didn't Start the Virus," and I was like, "That doesn't." I mean, yes, to your point, that is the thing you're talking about of the "We Didn't Start the Fire" energy, but I feel it's a misplaced sentiment, like because it's so specific about a thing. Whereas I think the reason that we do this project is that no matter what happens in the world, the phrase "we didn't start the fire" is not just about one world event that's seemingly swallowing everything. It's the idea that everything feels like it's swallowing everything else. Yes. And none of it is new.
Yes. So I guess all that is to say, we love that there is a lot of parody content out there. We love that there are a lot of 4-line tweets out there. Get those tweets off. But if you're looking for an absolutely ludicrous adherence to a parody version of this song, this is the place to be. We know it inside and out at this point after, I think, 13 versions of this song that we've done. If this is the first one that you're seeing, we dive into the news of the week. We know the numbers, we know the meter, we know the rhymes, and we're going to dig into a piece each from the original song that Billy Joel wrote covering the first 40 years of his life chronologically in 1989. And then we're going to dive into some of the news in the world. So this is, BCV world. And then we decided to, almost decided to stop. But then decided to continue. So this is just a weird thing that we're doing. And I don't think anybody else is doing this completely stupid of an exercise around this song.
Correct.
We generate one of these every week. So without further ado, let's dive in. So we begin the show by talking about what it was like for you this week. Either it relates to the song, things you noticed about the original song, things you noticed about the rhymes, things you noticed about the news, things that are going in your own life. I've been talking a lot. Sam, how was this week for you?
This week was mild. It has become a favorite project of mine to kick off Monday with a slew of news articles, feel excited about it, and then slowly taper off by Friday and think, oh, I haven't been checking in. But it continues to be really satisfying to cull texts I'm receiving from friends with news articles, things that are getting dropped into Slack channels I'm in, my tweet feed. Like it's everything is just a pile of news, and it's always fun to pull out the things I think are funny, whether they're meme or global news or serious or whatever. So I am finding joy in it. I'm finding a flow as per our conversations. And then in terms of the general sense of writing it, I think we've talked about falling into a rhythm, and it's just something that I feel increasingly confident about, not like my ability. I mean, yes, my ability, but also the knowledge that like this will get done every week has instead of filling me with dread, has become a comfort. Like we're going to by Sunday, by the time we record together on Sunday, we will have created a kind of important treatise on the world at large.
Yeah, it is a bit of a document, and it is in this form. And our approach to this, or at least my approach to it, is sort of tongue in cheek. Like it's a sort of a corny thing to do. It's a very corny thing to do, and not a unique idea. Like there are many versions of this throughout ever since 1989. Like people parody the song. It's a list song. It has a lot of information in it, but because of the format, I do think it is a format we can use to structure. Like I like exploring structures and diving into structures and parodies and language and stuff. So it's been somewhat of a comfort, especially in these last few weeks of quarantine and lockdown and pandemic, to use it as a tool to kind of navigate through all the news. And a lot of the news, we talked about this somewhat last week too, a lot of the news are kind of check-ins or updates about numbers and statistics. But to find the fun stuff, the memes that come through, but also the positive news that is related to this and the negative news that's related to this, there's just so much. But to make it specific has been really helpful. And the good news or other news that is not related to this or not directly related to this that might have otherwise been lost. So we do hope that it can serve for viewers, listeners as a look back on the week, which is why we're committing to doing this Sunday, at least while we're both on lockdown and not going to be anywhere else, because it does feel like a record of this time in a very stupid format.
Yeah.
We're taking very seriously.
One note that dawned on me, and this is very strange and possibly granular, but I was thinking about these news articles that mention CV, coronavirus, and the kind of the sub news within it, like the news about the Patriots plane being used to fly masks from China to Boston, right?
Yeah.
And as I was writing it, I was thinking about this very strange, the fact that we document this news article knowing, in theory, that the person engaging with this document will have known via our context clues that this is the context you need to understand the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to liken that to the original song. Like there is a level, and we've talked a little bit about this, about, the American focus of it.
Yeah.
But there's a level of like, if you showed that song to somebody who had never known any of those terms, they would have no idea what they're talking about. But if you kind of tell them like, this is the song that runs from the 50s to the 80s, you give them the context, you have, Cold War, post-war time, like it's contextual information that helps you understand the more specific thing, even though it's across decades. And it helps alleviate some of my, I don't want to say guilt, but my qualms about recording so much coronavirus content is like, well, this is the time we're living in. So the news stories that are about it is not, oh, well, this news is all about coronavirus. These are the news articles within the time that we are currently covering. Does that make sense?
Hell yeah, of course. I mean, it's a more discrete period of time, but also we're doing it from inside.
Yes.
Like the song is coming from inside the news rather than looking back. Like, yeah. I feel like our exercise, and this is like, again, this is like mostly a joke, but also like pretty serious. But if you look at the song, and I love to like just get into the song, right? The last verse, because there are 5 verses in the song, right? For those of you that have not spent as much time with the song as I and Sam have. And the last verse has a lot of quick hits, but the last line of the song before I Can't Take It Anymore is Rock and Roller Cola Wars. That was the most kind of immediate piece of news. But that is the thing that's closest to what we're doing, is like what's happening today, what's happening now. Mm-hmm. But for the stranger that wrote the song, to look back on things that happened in his childhood, there's context, there's distance, and it maybe feels a little less like there's very serious shit in that original song. That's the thing that I've kept coming back to. It's like there is genocide, there is war, there are, JFK, Vietnam, all kinds of stuff that is covered in the original song, but there's some distance from it. And part of our exercise that isn't true the original song is like we need to build some kind of immediate distance, or be like, okay, what does, like, oh boy, what didn't make the cut this week? The fact that a lot of different governments are spraying disinfectant on low-income populations. Like that was in 2 of our weeks, and like it didn't make it into the song because it didn't like fit the meter of the song.
Wow.
Which is,
I don't think I even saw that news story.
There were 2 in the roundup every month or every week. You know, Sam and I put together a roundup of all the links because there are approximately 25 news stories or items in each verse. And there was one where drones are being used in Indonesia to spray disinfectant on people.
I did see that.
And then in India, people are, I think it's the police, if I remember correctly, are spraying disinfectant on people on the ground using like sprayers.
Gives me chills. It's like it harkens back to like Agent Orange.
Yeah. Ugh. I mean the images, especially of the drone flights. And there's something again scarier about the drones because they're not manned, and that's something that people in power, people with resources, could do via technology, right?
Oh, that's surreal.
I do have something about U.S. drone strikes in this week's. We're just getting right into it, right? But it's sort of a similar thing. Like it doesn't require someone being out for us to continue our drone strikes in Somalia, for example. So so that's just a thing to think about, is like I've been confronting what is creating something like this. Like obviously this show, this song, these parodies won't change the news or won't affect it. So it's our way to metabolize it and maybe help other people metabolize it. But it does feel sort of shitty to figure out how atrocities or news or the deaths of prominent people that we care about, how they fit into a rhyme scheme or a meter.
Yeah.
But that is kind of what the song is. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, I want to clarify, like shitty, but not tone deaf. And that's something we've talked a lot about is whether it's worth mentioning things. And especially in the early days of 2020, when we thought we were on the brink of war, it was just like, how do we talk about all of this awful, awful stuff and mass shootings? The reality is that I think I don't want to say there's like a misguided notion per se, but it's like just because you put something into a digestible format, you metabolize, as you're saying, it doesn't mean you're making light of it. It can still be an acknowledgement. It can still be a document, a living document.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's felt soothing, is because I'm pushing through the coronavirus noise, to get to some specific stories and check in with what is happening in these different parts of the world and what are the different responses to it.
Yeah.
And also, how are people dealing with it? What's happening in entertainment? What are the good stories about it? So there's a lot. And so I'll move on to like the next part of our chat, which is, I guess I already kind of tipped my hand. I basically shared mine, but we talk about items in the news this week that we want to highlight that otherwise might not make it through or we found interesting. So I talked a little bit about that very upsetting news about 2 different cases of disinfectant being sort of mass sprayed on people. Did you have something or a number of things from this week that you wanted to highlight?
Well, this week mine is a slightly good news that I recently learned. I believe it was the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, actually lifted a previously very restrictive ban on blood donations from gay men. So before it was, you couldn't donate blood if you'd had sex with another man within a year. And that was obviously like a kind of holdover from the AIDS epidemic era.
Yeah.
But they recently reduced it to 3 months and are now recommending, I believe that the same goes for like, I gotta look this up. Oh, here, let me just see, because I have the article in front of me. They mentioned that it's not just gay men. They also, the FDA also recommended that women with male sexual partners who have had sex with men in the past year not donate blood. So there's still, I think there's still an awareness of the fact that HIV is most commonly transmitted between same-sex partners, between men. But I think it just felt like very wonderful to read this news of like, maybe there's been an attempt to reduce the phobic nature of that restriction.
Yeah.
So that was promising.
That is promising. That's good to hear. There was in terms of world leaders, there were a couple of good sentiments or stories. I think both of which made it into the song in my verses rather. So the Prime Minister of Ireland is a former physician and stopped practicing in 2013, but at the onset of the pandemic, re-upped his license to practice and is practicing medicine, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then also the Prime Minister of Italy has effectively called for the end of all conflict between nations.
Yeah,
which is nice.
UN,
it's a nice sentiment.
Yeah, the UN also called for like international cooperation. That's how I synthesize those into a pacifist, which you'll see in my mention, because it's a call for pacifism where there wasn't before.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to highlight, or we can move on to the old song?
Oh, let's move on to that old song story.
Okay, great.
Old song and dance.
So the other thing we do every week is we take one of the items. Again, there are between 16 and 28 news items or culture items in all 5 verses. So we're not going to cover them all over the course of this year, but we each pick one each year. Oh, I guess between the two of us we could. Yeah, between the two of us we can.
We'd better. I'm going to forget which ones I've covered.
Well, no, there's about 100. So yeah, we'll probably cover most of them, right?
Between
the two of us. So what is your piece from the original version of the song?
Piece from the original song is the word Studebaker, which is the name of a car. But not only is it the name of a car, I mean, it's also a family name, but Studebaker is actually a company, a family-owned company that transitioned from horse-drawn carriages and buggies into cars and then effectively died as a car manufacturer. So I believe the reference that the stranger is making is to the end of the Studebaker manufacturing era. And funnily enough, I'm Canadian, and the last Studebaker car was produced in Hamilton, Ontario. There was actually a plant opened in Canada, and that was the kind of final frontier of their partnership when they I think they merged with another company, Packard maybe.
Okay.
But it was like they couldn't keep their sales up. They'd opened this plant in Canada. They started closing things in Ohio, closing things in South Bend, Indiana, which is where their original hub had been. And then my research shows the last car rolled out of a lot in Hamilton, Ontario, which I just love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's from Joe
Studebaker
McCarthy,
Television.
Richard Nixon, Studebaker Television. That's verse 2.
Sounds right. I think that's not verse 2.
3.
Wait, 3 or?
Oh, is it the end of 1?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah. As you were. What's yours?
I just realized, Sam, this is crazy, that Richard Nixon's in the original song twice.
Is it? No.
Yeah. Since Joe McCarthy, I mean, we learn something new about this song every week, but it's right there. Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker Television, and then later you have Richard Nixon back again at the end. Because it's true. He was, this influential governor of California, and then he was president and, all the stuff. So I guess in those 40 years, Nixon had 2 really big.
I love that as another. So one of the things we try to do in this exercise is find those points of like, oh, this happened there. Can we replicate that? The weird duality of this or this. And it's funny to think about how much we've agonized over mentioning the same news story or news content twice over the course of the song when.
Oh yeah, especially now.
In the original. Yeah.
So maybe that's the thing to try to. So we got Richard Nixon in verse 1. This is I'm riffing here, and then we have Richard Nixon back again. Is in
verse 4.
Verse 4
or 5. Is it 5? The weekend?
I think it's 4 because. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. No. It's the final verse.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because I have 5. I had it this week.
Yep.
So that could be like something to aspire to, along with some of the internal rhymes when we try to match the rhyme scheme, which we've been doing a lot more, and then honor some of those little tweaks of, if we say goodbye to somebody, if we say something in the something for Belgians in the Congo, they're kind of like these little internal things, but that could be one of the things we add to the list that we try to do.
Yeah.
If it pops up twice in the week, it'd be fun. Okay, so mine from the original song. Anyway, speaking of the stranger, the person who wrote the song.
Oh, yes.
Is Stranger in a Strange Land. So last week, in our non-video version of this, my thing from the song was Peyton Place, which is like a really horny book from 1959 that became a movie, became a TV show that was scandalous and got everybody all up in arms because it was about young people discovering their sexuality, and they all lived in like this. It was the Melrose Place of its day. So Stranger in a Strange Land was also a very provocative book that was banned and had this huge influence on culture. Those were removed from reading lists, but more from like a conceptual sci-fi place. And it was nominated for and won, I believe, Hugo Awards, which are the science fiction awards, but had this major impact on culture and an enduring impact on culture because it was censored, it was pulled from shelves, it was pulled from lists, and all the way through past the end of the original song that we're doing with this show. In 1991, the original unedited manuscripts of Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land were released by his widow. So the pervasive influence of this guy who basically created this character who's an avatar for himself going on this science fiction odyssey lasted nearly 50 years in terms of its impact on culture.
Wait, so was he involved in the writing of Stranger in a Strange Land? No.
Robert Heinlein?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. I thought we were talking about Billy Joel.
Oh, no. He just has an album where he calls himself The Stranger.
Okay.
And it's in the song, so it's possible that The Stranger is based on the album title. The Stranger is an homage to that.
Wow.
But because that's the other part of the song that we're always dealing with is like we're filtering it through our own political views, our own sense of the world, our own experience. And Billy Joel did that too. So a lot of the stuff from the 40s and 50s in that first verse is like his childhood, stuff about the Brooklyn Dodgers and stuff that influenced him too. So maybe Stranger in a Strange Land had a particular influence on Billy Joel.
Maybe.
So all that having been said, let's do the song itself. Let's do this whole exercise. This whole thing is about. So the way that we do it, there are 5 verses in the song. There are 7 days in the week. We alternate every week. So we have 1 verse for Monday, 1 verse for Tuesday, 1 verse for Wednesday, 1 verse for Thursday. And then the 5th verse we do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which we collaborate on. So this week I had Monday, Wednesday, you had Tuesday, Thursday. We each wrote 3 lines each in verse 5. And we're going to collaborate on writing the final 2 verses of verse 5 during this video right here. So that means I start. I printed it out in case my computer got slow. Incredible. And we're not performing the song. We are investigating the format of it as a piece of literature. So we get kind of in the cadence in the singing of it.
I'm very excited because I just noticed that we do have a double reference in verse 1 and 5, just like the Richard Nixon reference. And I'm very excited.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's we work. We're going to find out.
Oh, great. Oh, that's right. Yep. Because there's things come up and then they get resolved. Yeah. Okay. So this is Monday, which was March 30th. I'm going to hold this up. All right. Hackers zoom in, space delay, April 30, lockdown day, WeWork trouble, Xbox Baker, who stole this Van Gogh? Alan Merrill, twitches, glitching, hungry, backing, despotism, grim, sleeper, F1 breather, magnet stuck in nose. Dun, 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 dun. Booting Shaq from Papa John's, meeting with El Chapo's mom, Furloughs, rent strikes, can I teach my dog to drive? Star Trek, hacked, screen, Japan and China, crash at sea, Facebook button, Iran riots, Epstein, Weinstein, pipeline. You can't help but sing it a little bit.
Oh, I always do.
Yeah, you have a better singing voice than I do.
Okay, ready?
Tuesday.
Cuomo broadcasts his disease, strikes by Saudi, UAE's virus ban, Turkmenistan, Malaysian baby talk. Strega Nona's author gone, no labor rights at Amazon, FBI surveillance flaws, doctors tick-tock. Andrew Cuomo nipple gate, Wall Street looks worse than '08. Very painful weeks ahead. Dolly puts your kids to bed. House party, Minecraft, quarantine, Les Mis for laughs. Siren on the Empire State, and New York has a health draft.
Dum. All right, Wednesday. Oh, it's stuck on 2 pages. Let me do this. All right. Online docs, drone attacks, Hobby Lobby, SpaceX, guns, sales, Poland vote, quake in northern Idaho, Wimbledon, backyard jog, COVID test results backlogged, Philly, healthcare rent too high, get shot if you go outside. Schlesinger, Florida, treatment for malaria, drug tunnel from Mexico, Badger State still plans to vote, YouTube, unlocked Swedes, Tiger King in quarantine, playground shut by Cuomo, Ina Gardens Cosmo. It was never going to be anything else in the Belgians in the Congo slot.
Amazing. Okay. Thursday. E-bikes layoff boom. Hackers are exploiting Zoom. Shenzhen, OAN, gay men's blood donation. No more Prime N95. WeWork takes a nosedive. Jazz mourns hurricanes. Mass brought in by football plane. White House terror answered for. Humpback body washed ashore. Duterte blows his own away. What else do I have to say?
All right. So now.
Oh, now we have to write these last 2 lines.
We got to write these last 2 lines. And
Man,
then we'll do the whole
I should
verse
have,
5.
instead of hypodermics on the shores, we should have been humpback whale is on the shore. Anyway.
Oh, humpback whale. We had a couple overlaps there. I had something about Duterte as well, but I had, because in South Africa, they're shooting people with rubber bullets. And in Philippines,
and I
they're
also
shooting people with
a couple Zoom, like there was some WeWork stuff, there was some Zoom stuff that overlapped, but it's interesting.
Well, Zoom has been, I mean, we're on Zoom right now. Zoom's been all over the news. And Zoom's response, Zoom's update, the hacks, all that stuff. But yeah, Duterte, because basically he threatened it, and then they did it. Like someone was shot. So, it's 2 pieces of news,
do we do the me asking you question? We do it after we read the whole thing.
Oh, about my stuff? Yeah.
I have one question, but it's after. Okay, great. So let's write these last 2 lines. I think we already know what our very last line is.
Yes, we do.
So let's...
Because that's the I can't take it anymore line. So we just need 2 pieces. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. In the weekend, I've already done...
No, it didn't make it in.
So it could be like... Oh, yeah.
Like something Vericar.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened. That definitely happened. It's a little,
too much? We can listen.
I think anybody that goes out and delivers things is a star.
That's my thought. All right, then let's go with what we have.
Do you have those written down, what we just said?
I do.
Okay, do you want to
do you want me to do the whole verse?
Oh,
we
yeah.
haven't done any.
Oh, yeah, sure. You looked through mine, right?
Yeah, sure.
Just do all of verse 5 then.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
I feel like you made me do this last week, but I'm doing it. Bill Withers, Spider-Man, Atkinson gets canned, Pink, Mill updated, Zoom, Coffee, Kiwi, Jerk is doomed, Labor, Jay-Z, email strike, which TV character am I, Brooklyn landlord, rent relief, Andrew Yang, speech, beef, Quibi, gamble, drone mates, Jupiter, mom updates, passive fits, COVID kids, Fox News knows what day it is, welcome Dr. Veridcar, hazard pay for postal stars, ventilator, bidding war, I can't take it anymore.
Something. Yeah, that's great. That's the show.
Yeah,
we made another one. That's the 13th? I don't know. We lost track in the middle there.
I'm leaving it to you to make up those 3 weeks that I had a mental breakdown.
Yeah. No, there's a 3-week. Listen, hey, not that I didn't, but yeah, I'm doing a little backlog of a 3-week break that we took when all this started. So let's talk about what we heard from each other, and then we can wrap it up.
I simply must know about can I teach my dog to drive?
Oh, yeah. So it was in the list, and there's actually more fun stuff about it because there was this high speed chase. This was in the UK, but this guy tried to teach his dog to drive, and then the police caught him because I guess there's nobody else on the streets, and it led the police on a high speed chase because they didn't want the dog driving.
The dog
didn't.
Okay.
The dog. as far as I can tell from the story. And this wasn't even in like weird news, because I think we did this maybe early on where we'd like
we're
weird news
a lot from weird news, yeah.
Or for other show we look for like weird news for fun headlines and stuff. But for this, it came up in the normal. It was probably a BBC story, but yeah, this guy tried to teach his dog to drive. That's it. I mean, we were pretty on top of it this week in terms of updating the doc. We fell a little bit behind by the end of the week because we had another show to do. But
last night merely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to mention that you were reminded of from your own or from mine?
There's nothing really mentioned. I learned recently about the OAN. It's a far right news network that was banned from White House press briefings.
One America Network.
Yes.
I believe that's where Tommy Lauren got her start.
I believe it, because there was this woman, Chanel Ryan, who kept attending the briefings despite rules limiting the number of journalists. So then that whole news outlet was just banned.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just an interesting piece. Like, it's funny because the way we've been sourcing news has been relatively systematic, where we like know the websites we're looking at. We have, maybe a dozen news websites that we're entering the URLs on, plugging in the custom range as the date, and then just finding stories. But when I was pulling stories, I forget where I found this. It turned out to be like a number of stories that I'd missed on various news outlets that I follow. So it was just the most recent fascination point, where it's like, it's one of those moments where you're like, oh yeah, this piece of news was going on this entire time. And if none of the news outlets are serving it to you, you would not know, even though it's being covered in a number of ways. It's just like if the algorithm doesn't feed it to your eyeballs these days.
Yeah.
It's as if you never read it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally that you never read it, but it's as if it never happened. Yes.
I am very proud. I mean, aside from, given the circumstances, GTC, caveat for everything, I'm very proud of our methodology for sourcing news stories. It was just these moments of, let's identify how many we need for each week or for each day. Here's when we figured out how to search within the news tab and use the URL of the news site and look on the sites. But also it is true, because then we're just relying on that rotating kind of lazy Susan of news sources. So it's great to kind of find something that cracks through that and then remember, I haven't been, we could be more diligent with how we're looking for news too.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself going to other news sources? I think you noticed when you clicked the link for some of those that I went to Le Monde this week.
Oh my God. I loved it. I had to translate pages from French. That was so great.
Yeah.
No, not particularly. I think, where did I start looking? No, I've been using a lot of Al Jazeera, a lot of BBC, I still go back to NBC a lot, New York Times, occasional CBS. Yeah, nothing much. Oh, and Mashable, inspired by you. I've just started looking to see their news coverage.
Yeah, Mashable and The Verge.
The Verge is great.
Yeah, it's a great source for like news and tech news. But yeah, I think, there are other places like we've linked, Vox and Daily Beast
Politico,
and Fox News
too.
and Politico. And, but some of that horse race stuff, except from the ongoing fight over whether to delay the election, which includes the primary in Wisconsin, which, my home state is. I was just talking to my folks and my brother about it earlier today from different political points of view, but it's there's all kinds of stuff that if we weren't from certain places, if you weren't Canadian, we wouldn't be getting as much Canadian news,
Oh my God, it's my favorite. I mean, when I stumble upon a story, like my parents will give me updates on Canadian news. And when I stumble upon a national or international outlet that covers a story that I care about, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, there are some insane scandals that I won't, spend too much time, but like there's this billionaire couple that was murdered in their homes in Canada 2 years ago. And it's been this like maybe 3 years ago. And it's been this ongoing case, like unsolved, like the kind of thing that my favorite murder would just go loony over. And there's so many, like there's been a book written about it.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing the US just doesn't read, but it's so fascinating. Anyway.
Let me know when it becomes a Netflix true crime series. That's when
I can't wait
fire.
Because I would much rather watch that than Tiger King. Let me tell you.
So you don't want to watch Tiger King again. You don't want to do a premium episode. I think the moment has passed. I think the bubbles burst on Tiger King.
I think you can enjoy. You know what? There's a new episode on tonight, so maybe I'll go tune in. But
well, Joe Exotic is diagnosed with COVID and he's in quarantine. That was in my verse. Yeah. Which is kind of like...
Oh, I thought we were just saying we watched Tiger King in quarantine.
No, I mean, that would have been last week or the week before. But no,
I know. It was like, well, this feels old.
He's been quarantined in jail. Yeah, apparently there's a new verse. Great. All right, that was the week. Let's call it a week and let's get started for next week.
Yeah, I can't wait to do this again.
You want to keep doing this?
I like the live stream. Let's do it and let's promote and we'll have people next week watching it.
See you next week. Bye, Sam.
Bye, Jerzy.